Hi, I'm Brett Jennings, and for the last 12 years, I've traveled the country to meet, mentor, and mastermind with some of the brightest and best minds both inside and outside of real estate. I've taken those ideas, brought them back to our team of experts, and sold hundreds of homes per year all across Silicon Valley, and this is how we do it.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thanks for jumping on. I am super excited for our panel we have today. With the real estate market being what it is, I'm sure that we can all relate that it has been tough getting buyers into contract. So we have some amazing talent who've done a ton of buyer deals this year, who are going to share all their tips and tricks on how they have successfully gotten people into contract. I also want to introduce our panel moderator, Brett Jennings. Brett has been in the business a little over 10 years. And in that time, he's grown from an independent agent to running a team. And now we have this amazing team brokerage where, under Brett's leadership and mentorship and guidance, a team of about 60 of us were able to do over 800 transactions valued at 1.2 billion in volume in 2021, and looking forward to an amazing 2022. So with that being said, I want to hand the microphone over to Brett Jennings. Brett, the mic is yours.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction, Lauren. And I'm excited for those of you who have come. Looks like we've got a good group so far here today. And we are going to dive right into it and talk about what it takes right now to get buyers, into contract in this market. And before we do, we're going to talk to and hear from each of our panelists a little bit about them. But before we do, I kind of want to set the stage, because you've taken the time here today to spend an hour with us. We all have taken the time to get together and deliver value. And I want you to know we don't take that lightly. The 70 or so of you that are here, we aim to deliver in the next 60 minutes, really some great insights and ideas that you can implement immediately to start improving your business right now. And that being said, I want to share a quote from one of my mentors, Tony Robbins. And I had the privilege and opportunity to work for him for a couple of years coming out of college, and it was an amazing experience. But this is one of my favorite quotes of his, is that wealth exists in the gap between ideas and their implementation. So here's the thing. If you've taken the time and you're on here right now, let's make the most of this time. And what I mean by that is, it's been scientifically proven, if you just sit there passively and listen to what we have to say, you'll remember about 10% of what we share. Now, if you listen and you take notes, you'll probably, the studies show you'll remember about 30% of what we share. Now, if you listen, take notes, and then participate, if we ask a question, chime in. I'm going to ask some questions here in the chat, so that to make this session as relevant as possible. Participate, listen, take notes, and participate. Your retention will go up as much as 90%. So how many of you, by a show of hands in the chat, just say I'm in, are committed to getting the most out of this time today? Either raise your hand or say I'm in. Awesome. Awesome. We got Stephanie, Pranshila, Johnny, Joy, I'm in. Awesome. Well, let's kick it off and get started. And I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists. We have 5 other real estate agents, real estate expert partners here that collectively, across these 5 partners, they closed 171 buyer deals in the last 12 months. Now, my guess is if you're in the business, to do an average 20 to 30 transactions, a lot of them or all of them being buyer deals, is incredibly difficult to do. So we're going to hear from them exactly what they've been doing to get those buyers into contract. But let's go ahead and hear from our panelists quickly, if we would. We're going to introduce them. And so if you would just jump out when I call on you, share obviously who you are, what your core area that you've been working in, and what was your either unit count or sales volume for last year. So Necker, why don't you go first? I think you're on mute.
Yes, I just took it off. Hi, everyone. I'm NECA Jenkins, and I live in the South Bay, but my husband and I have always done quite a bit of business in the East Bay and down the peninsula. And so I have a team now, and we do business pretty much all over. And last year we did 149 home sales. We helped 149 families, and we sold 174 million as a team with about 4 or 5 active and producing agents for 2021. Our team has grown now, and we are at 10 agents, and that's all I think I'm supposed to say.
Awesome. Awesome. Mark Dwelle. I know Mark is one of our more seasoned agents. He's been in the business quite a few times, quite a long time. And Mark, if you can come out, introduce yourself and share your production.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, guys, and looking forward to sharing with you guys what we've learned and how it helped our business. I've been doing this for almost 18 years, and just been thrilled to have helped a number of buyers achieve that dream of owning a home. And I've been working primarily in the South Bay, some of the East Bay, and just wherever business takes me that I feel is necessary for me to help the clients.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Mark. Amanda Vang, are you on with us?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Awesome.
I'm Amanda, and I've been in the business for 6 years now. I'm from the South Bay, and last year we've done 45 million in sales. So 45 units. It's just myself, my partner, Michael, and my assistant.
Awesome. And what percentage of your business, Amanda, was the buyer's side last year?
So out of the 45 units, about 35 of them were buyers.
Wow. So really strong on the buyer side. Awesome. Olympia Pistalo, if you could jump out.
Hi, yeah, I'm Olympia. I've been in the business 6-7 years now. Last year I did 24 units, and I averaged about $20 million a year, just cruising through.
Just cruising, 20 million. And then lastly, Jade.
Hi, everyone. I just joined Rex not too long ago. I think it must have been in May of last year. And I ended up doing 34 units last year. I do most of my business in San Jose, kind of like Mark, wherever the business takes me is where I go. But trying to do most of it in San Jose and the South Bay. I think for me, last year was me, and I had an assistant for the last half of the year. This year I'm trying to add on to that by adding a few buyers agents, and keep my assistant and see how we can grow.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and looking forward to getting into it right now. So one of the things that is most important when you're trying to create success in anything is mindset. I would say it's commonly said that 80% of success is mindset. It's what's going on between your 2 ears, and I'd go as far as to say it's 90% when working with buyers. So you can have lots of buyers, right? Write dozens of offers, but if you don't believe in your heart that buying in the current market is the best thing for your clients, then you really have no chance to get your buyers to do what needs to be done to get them to win in this market. So starting off with mindset, I'd like to ask the question to all of our panelists and open it up here for, what do you believe about the current market, right? Getting your head straight. For all of our people who are listening in, what do you believe about the current market, and what opportunity it represents for buyers today? Because who would like, any one of you could kind of jump out and share.
I'd love to jump in on that really quick, because I talk about this a lot with our team. I think that it's a very anxious time right now, and that's understandable. And it's a lot of us have never seen a time like this, and it's easy to get caught up in that. But if you think about just as it directly relates to real estate, one thing you have to remember is that for the past 2, 3, 4 years, we've had a lot of anxious times, right? And look at what's happened. So at the end of the day, bringing your buyers back to kind of this calming place of certainty that we've seen tough times before. I'm not saying we've seen a war like this before, but we've seen tough times like this before. And as it relates to real estate, you know, trying to make assumptions about the future where none of us have the answer is not going to help them. At the end of the day, sometimes I think 2 years ago with COVID, things got crazy in the opposite direction, right? The market went insane and prices went higher. So sometimes when I think about what's going on with this war, I think people are going to value home ownership and just having their own place and their own land, you know, maybe wanting to expand and have more land, because all of this, everything that's happening with the war right now is so scary for people. So it might have somewhat of a similar effect emotionally for people. So when you're talking to your clients, all you can reassure them of is, are you prepared financially to buy something? Are you in a situation where that makes sense? Then that's all that you need to focus on, because nobody's going to have the answer on how interest rates will ultimately be affected. What is it going to do to oil prices? What's it going to do to inflation? And what's it going to do to the housing market? So at the end of the day, people still need homes, and it's probably better than renting if you live in the Bay.
So that you touch on a few important things there. So, you know, I want to unpack and highlight some of those things you said, Nneka. And one of them is, you know, look, we know that we've just come through COVID, right? And everybody remember what COVID felt like when we were on the front end of it. Everything, you know, I remember our team and group were like, holy crap, like, you know, are we going to be able to sell houses? Is the world coming to an end? But in times of uncertainty, you know, people actually value home as a place more than anything. So that was one of the things that contributed to the surge in, you know, transactions that came post-COVID. Obviously, the second part of it was cooping everybody in for so long. But I think that's an important thing to remember in the mindset of, you know, we are certainly entering in another wave of uncertainty with, you know, the geopolitical stuff that's unfolding between Russia and Ukraine. And I know, Nneka, when the first attack happened, you texted me, you're like, hey, what do you think I should do here? Like, my team's wondering, are we entering World War III? You know, what are we going to do? And as you and I went back and forth, I said, just remember, what's the number one thing that buyers want from you as a real estate expert and real estate professional? And we talked about certainty, you know, and certainty isn't something you can give someone. It's something you can be, like, in your belief system. The other thing you mentioned was bringing calm to them as well. And I think the third thing will be clarity. But I want to hear from some of our other panelists. What specifically do you feel like? What do you believe about the market, about home ownership and buying? Because, you know, prices are high, and I know as I've coached some agents, I've heard from them, I'm having a hard time because the market's so crazy. I'm wondering, you know, they're asking me, is it going to correct? Is it going to crash? And I don't know, right? And so the first thing you as a real estate professional, a real estate expert, have to get clear on is that this is still a great time to buy. So share with, you know, if I'd like to hear from some of our other panelists, what are you guys thinking and seeing and saying to your clients about you know, what you believe?
Yeah. Hey, Brett, it's Mark. Yeah. I mean, I'm piggybacking on what Nneka said, but one of the things is, and this is kind of just holds true in any market, is that it's a place of shelter. It's a place of security. You know, having a home is an essential asset that we all want to have, but you're creating memories. You have a place where your family can gather. You're going to get tax write-offs. So there's so many other elements aside from, you know, obviously the growth that we're going to get in equity. But homeownership means so much more. And I think it's an American dream that most people value. And it brings a lot more positive than negative. And we know in the Bay Area that we have a chart that you've gone over when we've gone over together, that over 40 years of time, it's always increased no matter what. And so, but those other intangibles are things that I think are super important that people need to understand.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I got some. I mean, I think the thing I always think to myself, and I think when I always clarify to clients, is you can't time the market. You can't, you know, the best time to buy or sell was always yesterday because we knew what happened then. But as long as you can afford it and you're going to be in it for 3 to 5 years, it's going to house you in that time, like, you're going to be okay. And so as an agent, if you're going out there and you're like, well, I don't know, maybe prices are going to come down. Well, you don't know. What you know is about their immediate need, and that's for housing. And as long as they're in a position where they can pay for that housing for 3 to 5 years, you are doing them a service. Don't get in their way by trying to like subdue their interest or tell them that the market's going to correct, because you can't predict what that's going to do down the line. And I think that's what people do when they get scared and they don't want to tell their clients to do what it takes to a winning offer. They're getting in their way. And that's not our job. Our job is to get them to their goals.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And then this is Amanda. I just want to add something to that. So I always go back to why they want to buy a house. And I think with everything else that is going on in this world, it's a lot easier to be able to identify the motivated buyers. And so instead of focusing on the ones and trying to persuade the ones that might not be in the best mindset, take that and, you know, focus on people who are ready and willing and able to buy. And so I think, yeah, there's been a lot of upside to that as well.
Awesome. Well, doing 35 or 45 deals on the buyer side, obviously that one belief, right? Focusing on the buyers that are motivated, focus on the right ones is going to be a big part of it. You know, and I think it's also understanding people's motivation and how they buy, right? It's people buy on emotion and then they justify with logic and reason. So I like what Olympia said and you said, Amanda, about zeroing in on why they want to buy, because that's one of the leverage points that you're going to use. But on that topic of like understanding their why now? Why do they think now is the best time to buy? It is going to be their emotional part. The other part is, you know, backing that up with logic. And I know, you know, one of the things that Mark, you talked about was this 40-year chart that we often go back to here at Real Estate Experts, when this is one of the anchor points that we use in our buyer presentation. And that is, can you guys see that up on the screen right now? Yeah. Okay, Robbie, if you could unpin the guests so people can see the screen there. This is the 40-year chart of Bay Area real estate. It's like looking back at the last 40 years. And so what we can see, you know, going all the way back to 1984 is the market has had three major corrections. And except for, you know, the Great Recession, every one of them was about 10%. Now, how long it takes to recover from those corrections depends on the economy at the time. You know, in 91 to 94, we went through a recession. It took 5 years to come back. In 2001, we weren't in a recession. The dot-com crashed. Boom, we were down 10% one year, came back up 10% the next. So 1 year down, 1 year up. 2018, we had a correction. Again, 1 year down, 1 year up. So what I like to tell, and I counsel, you know, we counsel our partners to say is that, look, let's look at the worst case scenario over the last 40 years. If you bought at the absolute worst time, what would have happened? So in 2008, in fact, we have a partner in our group that bought in San Jose, paid $825,000 for a house right at the peak. The market tanked the next 5 years, went down to $550,000 in value. And then exactly 9 years later, in 2017, that $825,000 that he paid, that house was now worth 1.7. So it's pretty reassuring if you can tell your buyers, right? Hey, look, like the market may correct, but it's probably not going to crash. If it does correct, it's 10%. It could be 1 year down and 1 year up. It could be 1 year down and 3 or 4 years up, depending if we're in a recession. But you can't get hurt. Like if you're going to hold this house for 10 years, our real estate doubles every 10 years, even through the worst of times. So I think that's important to share. And for all the people who are watching this call, we will have some of these slides available at the end. So stick around to the end and we'll share those with you. The other one that I think is worthwhile to talk about is what is our biggest threat to our economy that we're talking about, besides the war, before the war broke out, is inflation. And what is one of the best hedges against inflation? Home ownership. This graph shows the last what is it, 50 years of the real estate market, and the blue bars represent what inflation was during those periods of time, and the green bar represents what home price appreciation was. In every inflationary environment, except for 1980, which the price of homes really kept 95% in line with inflation, but every other period, home prices have always exceeded inflation. So I think this is another narrative to share with you potential buyers when we talk about getting their mindset right. So with that, any other thoughts on what you guys, your belief system about buying now before we move on? Now, before we move on, I want to ask all of our guests online, I just typed it into the chat, because we talked about mindset now. Let's spend the bulk of our time now talking about tactics. You know, once we have our mind right, what are the things that we're actually going to do, or what are these people doing to crush it with buyers right now in the market? So I want to ask, as we thread this conversation through the rest of our time together, what is your greatest challenge when working with buyers? So Luis says competing with other offers, competition. What else? Inventory. Got it. So we'll share something about that, some ideas about that. Buyers with not enough cash. Appraisal gap. FHA, not enough cash. All right. VA, catching up. Highest and best to the market. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. And I appreciate, keep chiming in on the chat there. What is your biggest issue that you feel when working with buyers, to make sure we cover those things as we roll forward. Starting off, I want to ask our panelists, you know, from beginning with a buyer, a lot of success really after you have your own mindset right is about getting their mindset right. And that's, you know, setting expectations. And I'd like to ask our panelists, like, what are you doing? What are you saying to your buyers to educate them and set proper expectations in the market? NECA, I know you, we talked a little bit before the call today. You've got some really good things that you're doing and how you set expectations. You want to come out and share?
Yeah, I think the first thing I focus on is a holistic approach to the client, right? So a buyer comes to you, they really don't understand a lot about the market unless they've worked in it. I remember when my husband and I were buying our first home, how naive we were to what real estate really is and all this. And on top of that, we were VA buyers. It's just kind of mind-boggling what I know now. So when I'm trying to set expectations for my clients, I'm really, really strict about getting them either in person.
Esther.
Sorry about that. Either in person or on a Zoom call, right? So, I hope you guys can still hear me. Sorry, the call came in. Do not disturb. Here we go. So I think it's super important to get in front of them or to get on a Zoom call. And for me, it's like, you know, we can all be door openers, but the truth of the matter is we have a lot more value to show these people, and you need to take control of the conversation. So when you get them in front of you, when you sit down with them, it's a holistic approach. I'm talking to them about why do they want to buy? Did their friends tell them to buy and they're just buying? Are they, you know, is there a personal reason? All of those things. And then go into screen share or in person with them. And I want to show them, has the home that you're looking for existed in the last 3 months ever for that price point? So I'm not just going to tell them, sorry, it's not going to work. That price point won't work. I'm going to show them. I always tell my partner agents and my clients, I can show you better than I can tell you. And they're 100% of the time they get on that Zoom call or they meet in person to discuss. Because if what you're looking for is a unicorn and has never existed, okay, well, how is it going to exist again? So it's not about me trying to up your price point. It's about me saying, find something smaller or in a different location, or you need to up your price point. And when you don't have to say that and you show it to them and their eyes are kind of, or they're kind of like, oh, oh gosh, I didn't think of that. You know, that's the moment where, you know, they're trusting you, because now you're building that rapport with them, but you're also showing them, I know my stuff, right? So I do a lot of that. And then I'm always listening for those rapport building opportunities. I'm always listening for what's going on in their personal life that might be persuading them emotionally, right? Brett said something that I can never repeat perfectly, but you said, what was it that you said, that emotion takes them, and then logic, how did you phrase that?
People buy on emotion and then they justify with logic and reason.
It is it's so important. And I translate that sometimes with my partner agents to say, listen, people are going to be attracted to you because they like you. And then after that, you've got to prove to them, just for a little bit, you've got to prove to them that you know your stuff, and then they will stick with you. They'll be loyal to the end. So same thing with the buyers with our buyer presentations. When we sit down in front of them, I want to understand I'm doing more listening than talking. You know, sometimes I definitely talk a lot with my agents or with my husband, just ask him. But when I sit down and talk to someone for the first time, I want to find out more about them before I go into, this is what you should do and this is the market. This is not a, you know, song or pony or dog show where you're just trying to show them how amazing you are. You got to listen to them and be able to appeal to them. So if they start talking about, you know, they want to sell a house and then they want to buy something and there's tax implications, step up basis, all of those things that I don't pretend to be an expert on, but I have partners like with a tax person and all that. You want to be able to relay, you know, some of your confidence in the topic and tell them, I've got resources for you to reach out to so that you can make this buying process easier for you. So I'm focusing on all of those things, and you just got to listen to what they're not focusing on and go in on that and build that rapport.
Awesome. So the two things that two points I heard from you was one, and we've heard this from other panelists as well. So there's common threads here, right? Success leaves clues. Really getting clear on the why for that buyer, finding out the emotional reasons of why they want to buy now. But when it comes to setting expectations, Neka, you're physically taking them through the MLS based on whatever price point they're looking for in whatever area, and then showing them what they get for that dollar amount or that budget. And you're saying sometimes that's not necessarily a rude awakening, but they're kind of like, oh, wow. So this is what I get for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's the, you know, the first part, right, of getting your buyers to go where they need to go is setting expectations. Anyone else have any quick comments or thoughts on how to properly set calibrate those expectations for buyers?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So this is Amanda. So I completely agree with NECA. It starts from the buyer consultation. So once you understand their why, you have to walk them through the market. So with me, let's say if my buyer has a price in mind, right, at 1.2 for a single family home. At that point, I will tell them that, you know, now homes are selling $200,000, $300,000 above the list price. So if your budget is 1.2, it's almost unfortunately impossible. So if you want to stay at let's say if you want to stay at 1.5, you need to look at a house 200,000 to 300,000 below that. So setting that expectation right up front, it kind of make them realize like, oh my gosh, the list price is not the final sales price. And then I always encourage my buyers to get pre-approved for more than what they actually want to buy, just so that we have options and options to look for. So let's say if their budget is 1.2, but then they can go to 1.5. Then right off the bat, I'll tell them, okay, we're gonna go look at houses 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. And then you can then decide what you're willing to compromise and what you want, how much does that cost you? So within the first few weeks, I wanna make sure that I set those expectations up front. So we're not wasting time. And at the same time, you're setting your buyer up for success and you're not chasing the market.
Got it. Awesome. Really good stuff, Amanda, and it's evident through just the number of units you did last year on the buy side that that's working for you. So we've talked about your personal belief system. We've talked about setting expectations with your buyers in the market. Now, you know, and this was one of the things we were hearing in the chat when I asked, hey, what's the biggest struggle? It's competition, it's getting the right price, you know, writing that perfect offer. So let's talk about how you determine what to offer, or how do you help guide your client in what to offer. And I know one of our panelists here has been crushing it with buyers and has a really high success rate of getting his offer is accepted, and that is Jade. And so Jade, you want to come out and share a little bit about what your process is in helping guide your clients to stretch to that right number?
Sure. I learned a lot from Neko on this because I was actually struggling last year with it because I just couldn't get, there's just a few months where I couldn't get anyone in contract. And what she said was she suggested that you just give them a range in terms of where you think it'll sell for, and then let them make the decision as to where they want to write. And what I found was once I started to do that, yeah, maybe we lost out in the first one or two, but on that third one, I gave them the range there, they were going in at the higher end of the range and they would get the offer accepted. For me, like I'm not perfect. I know I'm not going to be able to predict exactly what a home is going to sell for, especially right now in this market. So I tell them that, and I just tell them like, I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I can tell you based on what's going on with the market, it'll probably sell in this range. And normally, if I give them that range, first offer they probably come in the middle, second or third they're going up towards the top, and that's where we're getting a chance to really get an offer accepted.
So establishing a range and then letting them choose that number. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, Olympia, I know at different times and phases, there was one period where I think where you had, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 in a row where you were the winning offer out of like 22 offers. And so I'm like, Olympia, what the heck are you doing, to beat out 19 other buyers 3 times in a row on this? And you were telling me, it's all in the talk tracks. So share with us, if you would, a little bit about how you're, what's the scripts or the talk tracks that you're using to influence your buyers to reach for that brass ring when it comes to getting the winning offer. Are you on mute there? Or is she on mute? Anyone? Can you guys hear Olympia? Did we lose
I think
you?
she's on mute.
We can't hear her.
Put you on mute and then put you on, ask to unmute. Try unmuting.
I guess it's a secret.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll jump to somebody else and then we'll come right back to Olympia. Olympia, you might try logging out and logging back in. Maybe something happened with the Zoom connection. But anyone else feel like they've got a really good handle on getting your buyers to write that winning offer and what they're saying and what they're doing? Mark, Amanda, NECA?
Yeah. So I do pretty much what NECA does as well. So one thing I always do with my buyers is I always ask them to rate a house on a scale 1 to 10, 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. And based on my experience, I know that any houses that is rated an 8 or 8.5, the buyer they like the house enough to get the house. So I always let them know that if they don't go in at their best, once this house sells for, X amount, the next house that comes on the market, it's going to start at that price. So, and then they're going to be, they won't be able to buy in that neighborhood anymore. Now they have to look at somewhere else. And so usually that's what I do with buyers. And once I give them a range, they usually will fall under those range. If not a little bit, they will go a little bit higher to just get the house.
Awesome. Well, I know Olympia chimed back in here. Let's see if we can get her. Can we hear you? We can hear you.
I'm back. Sorry, I think all the phones were ringing. Sorry, I missed a bit there, but yeah, I do the same thing NECA does at the first meeting. I show them like, listen, this is realistically where, where houses that meet your criteria are going. And then we run the data on the range. When it comes to like offer writing time and getting them to like really go out there and do the thing, we look at all the comps, we look at the market data, we look at the inventory levels, and I tell them, okay, we have all this stuff and we do it live right there with the MLS on screen share. So there's no presentation or cherry picking. It's like, here's the deal. Check with the pendings, of course. But what I tell them when it's time to write the offer is, okay, like we've seen the comps, we know that this is, going to hit 1.2 or 1.3 or whatever number it is minimum. What are you comfortable offering for it? And whatever number they say, I say, great, whatever you're comfortable offering is what everybody's comfortable offering.
That is so good. That's gold right there.
I mean, if it's totally justifiable and all the comps are right there, everybody would love to pay 1.2 for it. But if you want to win in a competitive situation, you have to get to the uncomfortable place. And the uncomfortable place is the slightly above the last comps place. We know the market's trending up. It still is. We can't predict when it's going to stop, and you need to get out in front of it.
I love it. Nothing, what was the line? It's like, nothing great is ever accomplished in this market inside your comfort zone.
Yeah, you never won anything in a competitive scenario in your comfort zone.
Yeah, love it. So it's about getting them outside their comfort zone and helping them do that. So, okay, so we've talked about getting your mindset right, setting expectations, how to determine what to offer, and then getting your buyers there. Let's dig into a little bit, of getting your offer accepted. Actually, once you've written that, well, actually, let's talk about crafting the perfect offer before we're presenting it. When it comes to writing the perfect offer, obviously everybody's going non-contingent, but is there anything else that any of you are doing in putting some little secret sauce in your offer to help differentiate that offer or make it stand out? Jade, I know we talked a little bit before the call. We were talking about some of the things that you've been doing.
Yeah, I think, the one thing that has worked for me a few times now is the Escalator Addendum that you told us about late last year. With the market the way it is and these prices going up so high, I think some of the concern for some of my clients is just that, is there really another offer that's this high? So I've used that Escalator Addendum, and if the agent is comfortable with it, it works. I had one where they just took the offer outright, and they actually just called me when all the offers came in and said, look, if you can just come up to where your addendum says you can get to, we'll just give it to you now. And they still gave me the offer that was just below us, so I could give it to my clients. So I think that it's a good strategy. Not every agent is open to it, but it definitely works if they're willing to work with it.
Yeah, and I want to just share real quick, actually, what Jade is talking about is an escalation clause. And so an escalation clause is used to tell the seller, and I'm actually going to pop this up on screen real quick here. This is in essence an escalation clause. It's an addendum that you add to your contract. It says purchase price. If seller receives a competing offer prior to accepting this offer with a net price greater than this offer, then the net price of this offer shall be increased by, in this case, 5,000 more. Depending on your price point, I would be doing 10,000 or more. So you're saying we'll offer 10,000 more than the next competing offer, up to a maximum of whatever price. And then what is a competing offer? Because your buyers might say, well, how do we know that they've got other offers that they're going to be telling us we got to bump our offer to $1,555,000? Because the definition of a competing offer, the seller is to provide a copy of the other offers that they're using to escalate you. But this is a really good strategy. One caveat with it, I would check with a listing agent before you actually go and write an escalation clause. Some agents aren't comfortable with it, or their brokers might not be comfortable. Or if they don't understand it and they go to their broker with it, maybe their broker's not comfortable with it. So it doesn't work in all cases, but it does. It is one tool in the toolbox that can help you win in that competitive situation. Anything else, Jade, with contingencies, deposit amounts, anything like that you're doing creative to?
So I haven't done any, other than that, I haven't used anything else, other than I've tried to convince some buyers to, which, everyone has their own opinion on this, but I've gone up against some buyers this year where they're putting in that earnest money, they're putting in, what maybe, I don't know, 10% instead of the 3%. And some agents have told me that people are releasing that money early to some of these sellers, or even putting more in, maybe putting in 20% and releasing that right away to the seller. So I've told some clients about that. I don't like to push people to do anything, but I like to give everyone, ideas as to how we can make an offer stronger. That's one thing that we've gone up against.
Yeah. Anyone else among our panelists, anything creative that you're doing to help make your offer stand out?
Yeah, I'm similar to Jide. I've done that a few times, and I try to be strategic on when and if I ask my client if they're open to doing those things, like increasing the EMD or releasing it. I have not released it that often, but I have a few times and it's worked. But sometimes I wait till they at least lose one before I even tell them about those options, because I want them to understand what it feels like to lose one, and then get, you know, it has to be their decision. I'm just here to tell you, listen, I've used this before and it's worked. It's, you know, it's never a for sure thing, but if you're going in non-contingent and you're confident, especially if it's like a quick close and all of that, then, you know, maybe consider making your initial deposit hard, is what they call it, released right away, or increasing it just to show that you're financially stable.
So making the EMD become non-refundable or passing it through to the seller is one thing that we've been seeing some people are doing. Because look, if you know you're removed all your contingencies, your buyers are in, they're putting their deposit on the line. One option is to write into the contract that you're willing to pass through the deposit to the seller immediately upon acceptance. So that's just some other things. Okay.
I have a question from the audience from a Shannon Burek.
Yeah. Shannon.
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I have been on the receiving end of asking that question about, hey, will our offer look stronger if we raise the EMD? And I've heard mixed reviews. I have been told by my peers, go do it, like make it happen. You know, it's going to make your offer stronger. But when I speak to the listing agents about it, they tell me, don't even bother. So is anyone else getting that kind of an answer?
Well, I think the answer to what you said when you asked the listing agent is you're probably asking the opinion of the wrong, could be potentially asking the opinion of the wrong person, right? Because if the listing agent is obligated to present that offer, and say, for example, you're offering on $1.2 million property, and instead of putting a $36,000 deposit down, you put $100,000 earnest money deposit down, like that when they go to present that offer, it's going to look different. And the whole goal is, right, to make your offer stand out. In addition, you know, the good news is that per the California Association of Realtors Standard Purchase Agreement, the liquidated damages clause limits the exposure to the buyer. Like if the buyer, for whatever reason, had to back out, limits their damages to 3%. So they can't lose any more than that. So why not put more on the table, at least to raise the eyebrows of the seller? So I wouldn't be so quick to, you know, I wouldn't be so quick to take the advice of the listing agent. I would just go ahead and do it. And experience tells us, and that's the ultimate thing. What does experience say? Experience tells us that's worked in situations to get, you know, your eyes or some extra attention on that offer. But great question, Shannon. Anybody, other panelists have anything to add to that?
No, I agree. I think the listing agent knows that an increased deposit isn't that different, but when the seller sees them all side by side, if one is 1.2 and the other is 1.2, and you've got all your little things crossed and you did all the little levers and a bigger deposit, you know, it's a good scenario. Like the seller's eyes go to it, and you win favor in their eyes. Even if the listing agent's telling them it's a gimmick, it doesn't change anything the whole time. They still are like, ooh, 100 now sitting in my escrow account. That feels better than 36, you know.
No, it's great. I agree with Olympia, because if anything, some of the times where it's worked, they just call and they're like, wait, is this a mistake? I think Robin, one of my partners, just did that the other day, and they at least called her back and said, are you sure? Is this a mistake? Well, and at least you're getting them on the phone after you've submitted. So maybe you can then, you know, butter them up and get them to help you figure out how to win the deal.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so we've talked about all of these elements. We've now written the perfect offer. We got our buyer to stretch to the right price. Now, obviously, and for some of us, we may look at that listing agent as an obstacle or a path to getting our offer accepted. So I want to talk about and open it up to the discussion of, like, what are you guys doing to really engage those listing agents, to give yourself, you know, are you doing an offer presentation in person? When it comes to presenting that offer, what is your process, or what's your thinking in how you get your client the best chance of getting that offer accepted when it comes to presentation time? Any one of you can jump out and share.
Yeah. Hey, Brett, it's Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I think of the culmination leading up to that point and being confident that you're going to submit a good offer, but it also preparation and mindset. I think it kind of portrays itself as someone who's confident when you're coming across and you're asking questions And I'll kind of digress a little bit. I know back in the old days, you would ask the agent, can I come and present? And that was a common thing to do. And I know some newer agents may not have experienced that, but it still works. And I think if you're able to at least ask that question and come off very confident about it, that you may get a chance to get in front of someone. And if you can get in front of someone, you're going to have a lot more chance of success, especially if you're coming with all your ducks in a row and with the enthusiasm and the professionalism to articulate that offer. You're probably going to stand out a little further than everyone else if you can do that. So that's kind of the trick to the trade that you can try. But just having your offer ready, all the ladies and Jade had said so eloquently about having it kind of ready in that regard, and then taking it a step further and having the confidence and the professionalism and the and enthusiasm to show that you are proud to bring this offer to the table, and that you're secure about it. So super important.
I love what you said, Mark, because I think, ultimately when you talk about getting your offer accepted once you've written it, like, look, if you're not the highest offer, what are you hoping for? You're hoping for that you've developed enough relationship and good favor with that listing agent, says, guy or gal says, you know what? Like, Mark wasn't the highest, but man, he's a good guy. He was like a solid agent. Like, I'm going to give him a second round, or invite him to the counter, right? The multiple counter if they don't counter everybody. So I think that's super important to understand. And actually, as we talk about this right now, grab your pen or wherever you're taking notes on and write these 3 things down, because what getting your offer accepted about, is influence. It's your ability to influence that listing agent. And the 3 things I want you to write down is, write the number 6%. Okay. 6%. That's not commission. What 6% is, when they've done research studies on influence and the power of communication to move people or persuade them, 6% is attributed to the words that you use. Okay. Only 6%. So if you think you're going to send an offer over email, and email is your only avenue that you're going to communicate with that listing agent, you're leaving 94% of the power to get your offer accepted on the table. Number 2, write down the number. Is it 35%? 35%. No, 35%. Write down the number 35%. I had to make sure I had the number right. 35% is voice. Like, your ability to influence something. 35% comes from the tone in your voice, because they can hear your certainty, they can hear your enthusiasm, whatever that is. And then the balance, right? The 59% comes from your physical presence. So ideally you get there in person. If you can't get there in person, they won't agree to meet with you in person. See if you can do a Zoom. Like, if they catch your vibe, what you look like, what you feel like, listen, it's a lot harder to ignore somebody that you've met before, and you want to create that relationship. So Mark, I just wanted to cap that with what you said, because it's so important, man. I know whenever I have a high stakes, I don't work with buyers much anymore, but some of my sphere of influence. And when I do, I always insist, hey, is there any way we can get together? I just want to present this to you, and it'd be good to meet you,
Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback on that really quick, Brett, it's been times where just because I did that, or I had that rapport with them, that they actually said, hey, if you can come in here, or gave me some tidbits on what I needed to do. Not all the time, but it does happen. So I think you give yourself a better chance by coming with that mindset and being able to ask that question. So,
yeah. Anyone else on the topic of what you do to either build rapport with that listing agent? What's your process? What are you thinking about giving your seller the best chance to get that offer accepted?
I'll go.
Yeah, you're on camera.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, you guys are right. If you can physically meet them in any way, that's great. Even if I've cruised an open house before, knowing that they're going to be there, when my clients and I've already seen it before, just so that they can get a little introduction. No matter what, if I don't meet the listing agent, like we have an old say, CTE, call, text, email, right? I want them to become super familiar with who I am. 20 agents are calling them right now, and they're like, hey, what do you need? I'm like, hey, Bob, congratulations. Place looks cool. As soon as I get off the phone with Bob, I text him a picture of my business card. It's not a picture. It's a little, it's a little digital business card. Now, this is a huge nugget for you guys. I'm like surprised I'm sharing it, because naturally, psychologically, like if they haven't physically seen anybody else's face, they are going to naturally warm towards you just because they know what I look like now. So if I can't get in person, I send them a picture with my business card on it. And then I text them. I say, hey, this is Olympia. This is my number. I saved yours. Email, call, the whole bit, right? So I'm the most familiar agent to them from day one. And I think that that really bodes well. Like Mark said, once they know him, they're like, hey, I want to spend a month with Mark. He's great. So they're going to tee him up and help him out because they want to hang out with that guy for the next 30 days.
Who wouldn't want to hang out with a guy with that great of a smile?
You know?
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
another thing just on that point too, Olympia's totally right, and she gets everyone to love her within 2 seconds. Also, the one thing that I try to remember is empathy is huge in this business, right? So if you can remember to put yourself in their shoes, how many times were you the listing agent? You got a ton of offers. It's a weird time right now. Everyone's anxious. I want to know that that agent has talked to their client about how there'll likely be an appraisal issue. I want to know that that agent didn't just pick them up off of Zillow and or you know, randomly off of HomeLight, whatever lead source, and didn't spend the time with them on the front end. So it's not that I have to hear, oh, I've known the client for 5 years, but I want to hear from them. Listen, I've spent many sessions with this client, reassuring them of a potential appraisal issue. I've already spoke to the lender. Here's what we're going to do when that appraisal issue happens. Just go for it, knowing that there's going to be appraisal issue. Most of the time there isn't, right? But it's happening more often. I want to, that's what I want to hear from a buyer's agent when they're submitting, because no matter how close the offers are, I'm going to go with the person that is solid, that knows how to close, that has really prepped their buyer. So when you employ empathy, then you're going to turn that around and say, okay, if I were the listing agent in this thing, I'm probably really busy. I don't want to annoy them, but what do I need them to hear from me?
So important.
I prepped them for an appraisal gap thing from you, because it seeds a little doubt in the listing agent's mind. Like, is this thing gone a little too far?
Yep.
It's okay. If it has, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. And tying the lender in on that, guys, is super key, because hearing it from a realtor is one thing, and then hearing it from the lender who sees all their financial information to say, oh yeah, an appraisal issue, we've already covered that. They're well versed on it. We have these funds in the reserves we can pull from. It's all super important to show on the front end.
Yeah, well, that was actually, that brings up a good point. I want to make sure I try to touch on, you know, as we do host these panels, we want to make this as relevant as possible for all of you that are attending. And one of the questions that did come up is, you know, one of the questions that did come up was appraisal gap. Like, how are you guys dealing with appraisal gaps, or how do you ideally prevent or reduce the chances for an appraisal gap? Like, what are you guys doing? If you have any advice on that. I've got a couple thoughts, but I'd love to hear from our panelists.
So this is Amanda. So what I do with my clients is that I always go over best case and worst case scenario with them, you know, based on the comps, today's market, how many offers come in. So I go over all those numbers with them. Then I always prepare like with them, like, okay, I know you really like the house, but if the appraisal comes back 50K, 100K short, do you have that money to come up the difference? And a lot of times they will say yes. And some of them have said no, but I will kind of help them think outside the box. Like, okay, would your parents help you with the gap? Would your siblings help you with it? So being able to find different ways, like, are you willing to sell your stocks? Can you borrow against a 401k? So I try to prep them with all those things at the beginning. So when it comes to the house that they really like, we're not like starting from square one.
Got it. Or knowing that they have those resources enables, it gives them the confidence to make a very aggressive offer, knowing the appraisal might come in low. A tactic that we learned way back in the early days of the market climb, when we got out of the foreclosure crisis, was meeting the appraiser at the property, right, with comps. Now, you got to do that tactfully. They can't, quote, use your data. And depending on it, but they will typically, I'd say, hey, look, you know, for what it's worth, I know you have to do your research, but here's the comps that we looked at when we made this offer, and I'll give those to them. If it's a high stakes situation and your client, you know, might be in trouble if they can't get the appraisal to come in, consider having an appraisal done on the property yourself with your own, quote, your own favorite appraiser. Call them, ask them, hey, this is the number we're trying to get. Can you pull it together? Would you be willing to do an appraisal I have done that in the past and paid the $400 for an extra appraisal. Now, they can't, the bank's not going to use it, right? But again, when I go to the listing and the appraiser, when he arrives and I say, hey, for what it's worth, they had an appraisal done recently, and here's what it is. Now, what I find from experience is, again, they're not going to use that, but if a full appraisal's been done, the guy's like, oh, cool. And we find that they'll use those comps, those comments, and 95% of the time it'll come in at whatever that appraisal value is. So that's one thing to consider when heading off the pass appraisal. Another panel, another guest asked the question, how do you justify, Payal asked, how do you justify offer price? Payal, Nick, I don't know if you were on early in the call where she walks her buyers through the MLS on those closed sales. But I think the other opportunity is to shift the narrative from the short term. Is what you want to do is what we call frame shift. Getting your buyers out of looking at the market in this like 90-day window. Here's what the comps are for the last 60 or 90 days. Again, to expanding their time horizon and looking at that 40-year chart, or even looking at the last 2 years, you know, using market trends. You can say our market's gone up 16% or 18% every year, last 2 years, right? So if we have to quote overpay 5% to get this house, how long will it take us to make that back? 4 months, you know, as opposed to not writing a big enough offer and chasing the market and then having the prices go up 5%, 6% over the next 3 or 4 months. So something to think about there. Awesome. Well, one of the last things that is probably the pain point for everyone is inventory. So one of the things this call would not, or the session would not be complete without addressing the topic of inventory. So I want to share with you something that we picked up and that we've been working off of when it comes to thinking about, oops, yeah, that's not the one I wanted. Start share, screen share. When it comes to trying to find inventory for your buyers, here's what I would do, okay? Number one, call all the pending deals that are pending right now in your buyer's price point. If those homes look like they would all be appropriate, ask the listing agent, hey man, I know you probably got no contingencies on this thing. Is this deal solid? You know, what if, you know, we know like 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 3 deals are having appraisal gap right now, and some of those deals blow out. You might just get lucky if you call that listing agent and say, hey, yeah, as a matter of fact, the buyer's having issues. You know, if you could bring me an offer of X, we can slide your buyer right into that. So we've seen agents, some of our partners, you know, slide into deals that way. Second thing, call 25 of your past clients. And this might be an avenue to even just pick up listings. You might not find the perfect home for your buyer, but calling your past clients, sphere of influence, posting on Facebook, hey, I'm trying to do everything to find my buyer home. Does anybody know, you know, of someone who's considering selling right now? It's trying to source that off-market inventory. Number 4, send out letters. You know, those I have a buyer letters. We do mail quite a bit of those out. Now that message is getting a little bit of fatigue in the market. I think a lot of sellers, a lot of homeowners are getting those letters, but they do still work. You know, if we drop a couple thousand of them, you might get 6, 7, 8 people responding. You may or may not pick up a home for your buyer, but you might get a listing. Door knocking, getting aggressive, calling expireds. Now, the time frame on those expireds, I look at things that expired last year, right? Because if somebody was stretching for a higher price and the market wasn't there, well, guess what? The market's there now. So call those expires. Obviously, number 7, pretty obvious, let your office or team know. Number 8, call investors or rentals. You know, your investors or your flippers. If you know that they've got inventory, you can look on the MLS and see properties that had been flipped and find out who those investors are if they have anything in the pipeline. Number 9, obviously circle dialing. And number 10, when I say call the top 50, the top 50 is the top 50 listing agents in the area. If that seems like a lot, then go ahead and go to the MLS, pull up the MLS for the zip code your buyer is looking in, and see who are the top 10 agents that have listings in that zip code. Call them. Hey, do you have anything coming up? I've got a buyer. I'm just trying to get ahead of the market. Every now and then you do have a seller who says, hey, I don't necessarily want to go to market. If I can get my number without having to go to market, I'll sell it. So those are some good ideas in how to surface additional inventory for your buyers. I'd like to also hear from our panelists. Any other ideas that you guys have on kind of shaking loose listings or digging up, stuff that's not on the market for your buyers?
Can you repeat that?
I was just asking our panelists if they had any additional ideas of what they're doing to shake loose inventory for their buyers.
I think one thing that I sometimes take for granted because I can tend to be a little introverted is whenever I'm at a listing, whenever I'm at a buyer showing, just anytime you're out doing real estate activity and you see a neighbor outside, use that as an opportunity to, hey, friendly neighbor, let's chat. How do you like the area? And sometimes, I think about it, I'm like, oh no, they don't want to be bothered. People love to talk about themselves and they love to talk about their neighborhood. So, you talk to them, you'll find out about, Susie down the way that might be considering selling. And then, oh, look at that. You can do a pop by, or you can strategically send them a handwritten note. So I think that's super important, just being mindful of people around you when you're doing showings and all that, because you can always build some good relationships that way. Love it.
Love it. Any last questions from our audience before we start to wind it down? You
guys are awesome. Really good pointers. I really like what Oak said about making it personable with the listing agent. That's a huge nugget there. Thank you for that.
Awesome, Aiden. Thanks for jumping in.
Get one question from Louise Malunga, asking if we can elaborate a little bit more on the range. NECA, you mentioned you establish a range for your clients. Maybe how do you establish that range and how does it work?
Yeah, I think more than ever right now, it's super important to, at least for me, doing this is even more important because things are going so high over not just market value. Like I tell my clients, here's your list price. Here's market value, and in a normal market, it'll go at market value around it, hover around it. And now in this market, what we've seen since December especially is here's where it's actually selling, right? So there's that gap between not only the market value, but also what it's listed at. So when I'm showing them, right, on my screen or in person about where the prices are going, I show them, hey, when you're looking at this home, most people will say, okay, this home is move-in ready. And then you look at a comparable home that sold just 4 doors down, right? It'd be a good comp, but that home maybe needs work. Unfortunately, even though you and I that do, maybe we do a lot of remodels or we see these, we know that it's $100K difference, right? In that subject property in the home that needs work. Unfortunately, to buyers, just to get that land, just to get that home, just to get that opportunity, that $100K gap is like $5,000. So they'll still spend just as much as the home 4 doors down that needed a ton of work versus this home. So I will show them a range based on what's selling and looks like the home. And then what's selling doesn't look like the home, but a lot of buyers will still stretch to match that because the subjectivity in the value difference is a lot different than objectivity, right? So the appraisals are based on objective data, but then it's also based on the subjective data of where is it? Is it on the corner? Is it closer to the freeway than the subject property? All of those factors. So I always give them a range. And I say it could go as high as this number, but it could also sell here if maybe the buyers are looking at a different property and you only get 5 offers on this rather than 20.
Thanks for that clarification, NECA. Awesome. Well, in closing, let me say this. Let me ask a question, and we still have 71 people online. Did you get at least one idea from our panelists today that you could implement in your business? I'd like to see it in the chat. Say, I did. If you did, you got at least one idea that you can implement. Awesome. Awesome. Well, our goal at Real Estate Experts is to continue to deliver this value in our real estate community, whether you're part of Real Estate Experts or not. Obviously, we have we feel we have something special at Real Estate Experts, and what we call that X factor in Real Estate Experts is the collective genius that we cultivated by getting top agents to come together and and do something new. Traditionally in our real estate industry, a lot of our top agents would always try to keep their cards close to the vest, not share their tactics or secrets. But what we found and what we understand is we come from an abundance mindset. We recognize that, hey, when we share our ideas, like, it doesn't create less for us. In fact, creates more for us. So if you like that vibe and you're connected, and if that resonates with you, we want to encourage you to reach out. And for those of you who spent the time here today to hang on till the end, we do have a bonus for you. If you would like, we're going to send you a copy of the slides that we shared, specifically the slide about the 50-year chart on inflation and home prices that you can share with your buyers about why, right? That real estate is still in this market in a high inflation environment is probably the single best thing that they can do to hedge themselves against inflation. And then also the 10 tactics to shake loose potential listings for your buyers. In closing, both Lauren and I, what we do and what we get to do and we have the privilege to do is coach our agents and partners. And my personal passion is helping agents go to the next level. So we only have 10 spots available, but if you would like, we could do a strategy session with you. We'll meet for 30 minutes, identify missed opportunities in your business, clarify what's holding you back, and help you understand what it takes to go to the next level. If you'd like to take advantage of that, again, there's only 10 spots. We have about 70 people on the call. You can schedule a Double Your Business strategy session at laurenscalendar.com. Lauren, you want to put that in the chat?
Sure thing.
So laurenscalendar.com. So in closing, again, thank you guys for making the time, taking the time. I hope that the time we intended to bring it here, and it's good to hear that you guys got value out of this, and this is what we will continue to deliver. And until we talk again, don't just be an agent, be the expert. Thanks for joining us.